In March 2000, 15-year-old Jessica Davis was returning home from Grady High School in Atlanta, Georgia, where she had just won the regional debate championship. Her mother, Jamila Davis, 35, worked as a registered nurse in the trauma unit at Emory University Hospital. The family was still coping with the loss of Michael Davis, a U.S. Marine Corps staff sergeant, who died during a peacekeeping mission in Bosnia on April 23, 1999. According to hospital records, Jamila had taken a shorter shift that evening to attend her daughter's debate competition. 4 members of the Southside Killers gang breached the Davis residence that night. The gang, notorious for their violent home invasions across Atlanta's eastern districts, was led by Robert "Snake" Frank, 27. Police reports indicate that the gang members were under the influence of illegal substances, as confirmed by later toxicology tests. The attack began when Tyrone Jackson, one of the gang members, cut the power to the house. Security system logs showed it was disabled at 10:17 p.m. 2 other members, Ray Martinez and Derek Rodriguez, positioned themselves at the back door, while Robert Frank forced entry through the front. According to forensic analysis, they used a hydraulic spreader to break the door frame. Detective Tatiana Suarez's investigation revealed that Jessica had just entered the house when the attack began. The girl attempted to run upstairs but was caught by Frank in the living room. Jamila Davis, who had arrived moments earlier, witnessed Frank shooting her daughter 3 times with a .45 caliber Colt M1911. Ballistics confirmed all shots were fired at close range, less than 6 feet from the victim. During the invasion, Martinez and Rodriguez ransacked the upper floor looking for the supposed safe with military compensation, while Jackson kept watch outside. They caused extensive damage, breaking through walls and ripping up floorboards. Detective Suarez noted that the gang's desperation suggested they had received specific intelligence about a non-existent safe. Jamila Davis, who tried to reach her daughter, was struck in the head with a firearm by Frank. She sustained severe head trauma but managed to provide crucial details during her recovery at Atlanta Medical Center. Her testimony described Frank's distinctive snake tattoo in detail. A green cobra wrapping around his neck, its head positioned under his left ear with red eyes and extended fangs. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation's report revealed that the Davis residence was not a random target. The gang had been monitoring the house for several days, believing it contained a safe with Michael Davis's military compensation. The crime scene investigation, led by forensics expert Dr. James Cooper, revealed the full brutality of the attack. Blood spatter analysis showed Jessica was first shot while standing, then twice more after falling. The living room carpet contained 3 bullet holes, indicating shots fired downward at a prone victim. Shell casings were found in a triangular pattern around her body, suggesting Frank moved while shooting. The police recovered a dropped wallet belonging to Martinez, containing a hand-drawn layout of the Davis house. The diagram marked possible locations for a safe, including the master bedroom and basement. This evidence further confirmed the premeditated nature of the attack. Frank's fingerprints were found on the front door frame and several interior surfaces, while DNA evidence from other gang members was recovered from cigarette butts discarded near the house during their surveillance. The assailants fled in a black SUV, leaving behind extensive evidence of their crime. Neighbors reported hearing the vehicle's distinctive modified exhaust, a detail that would later help identify the gang's escape vehicle. Total time of the home invasion, from power cut to departure, was approximately 11 minutes. In April 2000, the Atlanta Police Department's Special Task Force apprehended the Southside Killers during an armed robbery at a downtown jewelry store. The arrest came after a violent shootout where 2 police officers were wounded. Robert Frank, Tyrone Jackson, Ray Martinez, and Derek Rodriguez were taken into custody. A search of their hideout yielded weapons matching those used in the Davis murder, including the .45 caliber Colt M1911. District Attorney Marcus Lester led the prosecution. The evidence was overwhelming. DNA matches, ballistics, fingerprints, and witness testimonies from other gang members created a solid case. The trial began in September 2000 at the Georgia State Court. All 4 defendants faced multiple charges, including first-degree murder, home invasion, aggravated assault, and weapons possession. During the 3-week trial, the prosecution presented 37 witnesses. Security footage from nearby buildings showed the gang's SUV circling the Davis residence in the days before the murder. Former gang associates testified about the group's violent history and their obsession with finding Michael Davis's supposed military compensation. The defense attempted to shift blame between the gang members, with each claiming minimal involvement in Jessica's murder. Frank's attorney tried to argue diminished capacity due to substance abuse, but toxicology reports from the night of arrest undermined this strategy. The jury deliberated for only 6 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all counts. Judge Patricia Morrison sentenced each member to 15 years in prison. The relatively light sentence resulted from a plea deal that prevented appeals and saved the state a lengthy trial process. During sentencing, Frank showed no remorse, maintaining a smirk throughout the proceedings. The other gang members remained equally defiant. Jamila Davis attended every day of the trial, watching silently from the back row. When asked to make a victim impact statement, she simply said, "My daughter was 15. She won a debate championship that night. They killed her over money that didn't exist." The courtroom fell silent after her words. Through military connections, Jamila located 2 of her late husband's closest comrades, Derek "Ghost" Kenneth and David "Reaper" Walsh. Both men had served with Michael Davis in the 2nd Marine Division during the Bosnian peacekeeping mission. According to military records, Michael had saved their unit during an ambush near Sarajevo, an action that earned him the Silver Star posthumously. Kenneth had been the unit's top marksman, with confirmed kills at ranges exceeding 800 meters. Walsh was an expert in close-quarters combat and demolitions. Both men had struggled to readjust to civilian life after their service. When Jamila contacted them, they were working as private military contractors. The meeting took place at Michael's grave in Arlington National Cemetery. Kenneth and Walsh listened as Jamila detailed her plan for revenge. They remembered Michael's sacrifice in Bosnia, how he had dragged them both to safety under heavy fire. Their military training and combat experience would now serve a different purpose. They agreed to teach Jamila everything they knew about combat, surveillance, and killing. She maintained her job at the hospital, arousing no suspicion while methodically preparing for the day her daughter's killers would be released. She learned marksmanship from Kenneth, hand-to-hand combat from Walsh, and studied their targets' prison records. Tyrone Jackson was released from Georgia State Prison in January 2015. Within months, he established a significant criminal operation in Atlanta's industrial district, using an abandoned warehouse as his base of operations. Every Friday night, according to surveillance records, Jackson conducted major transactions with various criminal organizations. Jamila Davis spent 3 months studying Jackson's operation. His security consisted of 8 regular guards, with additional muscle present during Friday meetings. The warehouse had 4 entrances, with the main gate used exclusively by Jackson's black Escalade. Kenneth's reconnaissance identified optimal firing positions from an adjacent building, while Walsh mapped the facility's structural weaknesses. On Friday, March 12, 2015, Jackson's organization met with rival groups. Under cover of darkness, Jamila placed explosive charges at key structural points. Kenneth set up his M40A5 rifle on the roof of a neighboring building, 380 yards from the target. Walsh coordinated their movements from a parked van, monitoring guard rotations. The operation began at midnight. The first explosion collapsed the warehouse's east wing, killing 3 guards instantly. Security camera footage later recovered from nearby buildings showed the precision of the attack. As panic erupted, a second explosion sealed the main entrance, trapping everyone inside. Jackson, following his standard escape protocol, rushed to his Escalade. The vehicle's armor modifications and bulletproof glass had given him a false sense of security. A third explosive, planted along his escape route, detonated as the Escalade passed over it. The blast flipped the 3-ton vehicle, rendering its security features useless. The forensic report detailed Jackson's final moments. The explosion had ruptured the Escalade's fuel tank, causing a secondary explosion. The vehicle's reinforced frame, designed to protect against horizontal attacks, became a death trap as it rolled. The autopsy revealed Jackson suffered multiple compound fractures and severe internal injuries from the impact. He remained conscious long enough to attempt an escape through the shattered sunroof. Kenneth eliminated Jackson's surviving security detail with methodical precision. The first guard fell while trying to locate the shooter. The second was hit attempting to reach Jackson's vehicle. The third died trying to call for backup. Each shot was precisely placed, demonstrating Kenneth's military training. Jackson, severely injured but still alive, managed to drag himself from the burning wreckage. Surveillance footage shows him crawling toward the warehouse's rear exit. His severe injuries left a clear blood trail, later analyzed by forensics. He made it approximately 30 yards before succumbing to his injuries. The medical examiner's report indicated that along with blast injuries, Jackson had suffered catastrophic blood loss from shrapnel wounds. The explosion and gunfire drew law enforcement to the scene, but the attackers had vanished long before first responders arrived. The official police report documented 13 casualties: Jackson, 6 of his guards, 4 rival gang members, and 2 associates. Forensic analysis revealed that the explosives used were military-grade, though their origin could not be traced. Inside the destroyed warehouse, investigators found evidence of extensive criminal activities. Jackson had rebuilt his empire through illegal trades, using the same methods that had led to his initial imprisonment. His personal ledger, recovered from the wreckage, detailed operations worth millions in illegal proceeds. Found near Jackson's body was a photograph of Jessica Davis, apparently placed there deliberately. This detail was initially withheld from the media to protect the integrity of the investigation. The photograph had been taken the day of her debate victory, hours before her murder. The destruction of Jackson's operation created a significant power vacuum in Atlanta's criminal landscape. The next target was already under surveillance, unaware that their time was measured in days, not years. Ray Martinez was released from prison in March 2015. By May, he had established an underground fighting operation in an old meatpacking facility in Atlanta's Warehouse district. His enterprise centered around illegal bare-knuckle fights, often ending in severe injury or death. The operation quickly became notorious for its brutality, attracting both wealthy spectators and desperate fighters. Martinez's security protocol appeared flawless. Each event had different locations, strict entry procedures, and thorough weapons screening. However, his one consistent routine emerged during surveillance. Martinez personally inspected every fighter before matches in a private room, searching for concealed weapons or signs of performance enhancement drugs. Walsh spent 8 weeks building his cover identity as Mark Collins, a discharged Marine turned underground fighter. He participated in smaller fights across Georgia, building a reputation fierce enough to attract Martinez's attention. His military hand-to-hand combat experience made him a convincing fighter, while carefully losing certain matches prevented him from drawing too much attention. On June 18, 2015, Walsh entered Martinez's operation as a new fighter. The night's event had drawn over 300 spectators, with fighters competing for a substantial prize. Walsh was scheduled for the 3rd fight of the night. Pre-fight inspection protocols required all fighters to meet with Martinez alone in a designated room 30 minutes before their match. The investigation revealed that Walsh entered the inspection room at 10:45 p.m. Martinez's standard procedure involved a thorough physical check for weapons and a review of fight rules. Security footage from the corridor showed 2 of Martinez's guards stationed outside. Inside the room, only Martinez and Walsh were present. According to the medical examiner's report, Walsh executed a precise attack the moment Martinez approached. The technique, known in military combat training as a lateral vascular neck restraint, required extensive knowledge of human anatomy. Walsh modified the hold to deliberately fracture Martinez's C4 and C5 vertebrae, causing instant paralysis and rapid death. The guards outside heard nothing. Walsh exited the room 4 minutes later, telling them Martinez was finishing some paperwork. It took 20 minutes before anyone discovered Martinez's body. By then, Walsh had disappeared through a pre-planned exit route, avoiding all security checkpoints. Martinez was found slumped over his desk, a photograph of Jessica Davis placed in his shirt pocket. The image was identical to the one found at Jackson's murder scene, Jessica holding her debate trophy. The medical examiner's report detailed the precision of the kill. The cervical fracture indicated the perpetrator had extensive knowledge of fatal pressure points and military combat techniques. A search of Martinez's office revealed detailed records of his fighting operation. Since his release, he had organized 28 events, resulting in 15 deaths in the ring. His ledgers showed profits exceeding $2 million, with substantial sums paid to local officials for protection. The investigation also uncovered evidence of fight fixing and blackmail of wealthy clients. The murder created chaos at the event. Hundreds of spectators fled when Martinez's body was discovered, creating a stampede that injured dozens. Police arrived to find abandoned vehicles and scattered betting slips, providing extensive evidence of the operation's scope. The raid resulted in the arrest of several known criminals who had been in attendance. Detective Suarez noted the stark contrast between this murder and Jackson's. While Jackson's death involved explosive violence and multiple casualties, Martinez's killing was silent and precise. However, both showed hallmarks of military training. The photograph connected the murders definitively, suggesting a coordinated campaign of revenge. Law enforcement began connecting the dots between the murders, recognizing a pattern of military precision in each execution. The two remaining gang members, Derek Rodriguez and Robert Frank, were still in prison, but approaching their release dates. The discovery of Jessica Davis's photographs at both murder scenes made clear that more deaths would follow. Derek Rodriguez was released in July 2015. Unlike his former associates, he chose a less conspicuous path into Atlanta's criminal world through illegal street racing. Rodriguez invested his prison connections and remaining resources into building a street racing empire. His modified Dodge Challenger, valued at over $200,000, became legendary in underground racing circles. Police records showed Rodriguez had carefully structured his operation. The races generated substantial betting revenue, with each event drawing hundreds of thousands in wagers. He used a network of spotters and police scanners to avoid law enforcement, moving race locations frequently to prevent detection. Jamila Davis infiltrated the racing scene in August, posing as Maria Torres, a skilled mechanic from Miami. Her hospital job provided perfect cover. She worked 3 12-hour shifts, leaving 4 days to establish her presence in the racing community. She spent weeks learning every detail of Atlanta's street racing circuit, mapping frequent routes and identifying optimal attack points. Rodriguez's Challenger represented the pinnacle of illegal street modification. The car featured a supercharged 6.2-liter V8 engine, producing over 1,000 horsepower, reinforced chassis, and military-grade run-flat tires. Investigation would later reveal Rodriguez spent over $50,000 on the tire system alone, considering it his insurance against law enforcement's spike strips. On September 15, 2015, Rodriguez participated in the season's biggest race. The event, featuring 12 cars racing for a $500,000 prize, used a complex route through Atlanta's industrial district. Derek Kenneth positioned himself near a crucial turn on Madison Street, where cars would need to decelerate from approximately 170 miles per hour to navigate a sharp right bend. Kenneth selected his position carefully, a partially constructed office building providing clear line of sight to the race route. He used an M40A5 rifle with custom-loaded ammunition specifically designed to penetrate Rodriguez's reinforced tires. The shot would need to be perfect, striking the wheel at the exact moment the car entered the turn. At 1:15 a.m., Rodriguez's Challenger approached the turn, leading the pack by several car lengths. Kenneth's shot struck the right front wheel precisely where the rim met the tire. The military-grade run-flat system, designed to resist conventional damage, catastrophically failed at the extreme speed. The Challenger's onboard computer, recovered from the wreckage, recorded a rapid deceleration from 171 miles per hour at the moment of impact. Rodriguez lost control immediately. The car skidded 420 feet before colliding with a parked fuel tanker. The impact triggered a massive explosion, creating a fireball visible across downtown Atlanta. Rodriguez died instantly, along with his mechanic Thomas Reed, who was in the passenger seat providing real-time engine management. The forensic investigation revealed the full extent of the disaster. The fuel tanker, supposedly empty, contained nearly 1,000 gallons of diesel. Later investigation would show it had been deliberately placed there days before, with its hazard lights disabled. The resulting explosion destroyed 3 other race cars and injured several spectators. As with previous incidents, investigators found a photograph of Jessica Davis in the wreckage, though heavily damaged by the fire. The ballistics report confirmed the shot came from an elevated position approximately 350 yards from the turn. Shell casing analysis matched the military-grade ammunition used in previous attacks. Rodriguez's death effectively ended Atlanta's organized street racing scene. Police investigation of his operation revealed extensive money laundering through automotive shops and racing teams. Financial records indicated he had amassed over $3 million in illegal proceeds since his release. While Jackson's death involved explosive chaos and Martinez's a silent execution. Rodriguez's murder combined precision shooting with calculated environmental factors. Each killing showed careful planning, but utilized distinctly different methods, making it difficult for law enforcement to establish a protective pattern for the remaining target. Robert "Snake" Frank. Robert "Snake" Frank was released in October 2015. Unlike his former associates, he immediately went into hiding. Frank established a fortified compound in Atlanta's Port District, converting a warehouse into a defensive position. His security detail included 20 armed guards, with snipers positioned on adjacent rooftops and a sophisticated surveillance system covering all approaches. Intelligence gathered by Detective Suarez's team revealed Frank had spent his prison time studying military defensive tactics. His compound featured overlapping fields of fire, multiple escape routes, and reinforced safe rooms. He hired former military contractors for security, implementing professional protocols and regular drills. On November 12, 2015, Jamila Davis initiated her final operation. Kenneth and Walsh took up positions overlooking the compound at 2 a.m., targeting Frank's rooftop snipers. Their synchronized shots eliminated both lookouts before they could raise the alarm. The precision of the attack suggested extensive reconnaissance of guard rotations and positions. The compound erupted into chaos when the bodies were discovered. Frank's security team implemented their crisis protocol, but they were facing opponents who had studied their procedures. Walsh had planted remote explosives around the compound's perimeter during previous nights, detonating them strategically to create confusion and channel Frank's escape route. As predicted, Frank fled through the container maze behind the warehouse. Security footage recovered later showed him moving with tactical precision, using pre-planned routes. The confrontation occurred in a dead-end corridor of containers. Frank, armed with a modified automatic pistol, found himself trapped. The warehouse's security recordings captured their final exchange. Frank recognized Jamila immediately, despite the 15 years that had passed. 15 years. "You waited," he said, realizing the connection between the deaths of his former gang members. Jamila's response was recorded clearly. "I waited for you to feel real pain." She revealed a military-grade fragmentation grenade, already armed. Frank fired 3 shots, hitting Jamila in the shoulder and abdomen, but couldn't prevent the inevitable. The explosion killed them both instantly, along with 4 of Frank's security team who had been closing in on their position. The investigation of the scene revealed the full extent of Jamila's planning. She had acquired detailed blueprints of the container yard, marking blind spots in the security cameras and plotting multiple approach routes. Her preparation included studying Frank's security procedures through an informant she had placed on his staff months before his release. Law enforcement found a final photograph of Jessica Davis in Frank's office, presumably placed there before the attack. Unlike the others, this photo was accompanied by a handwritten note. "Justice comes to everyone eventually." Forensic analysis confirmed the handwriting as Jamila's. 2 days after Frank's death, Kenneth and Walsh surrendered to authorities. Their detailed confessions provided a complete picture of the revenge operation, including how they had trained Jamila and helped plan each execution. They revealed that all 4 operations had been meticulously planned during the years leading up to the gang members' releases. The subsequent trial lasted 3 months. Despite public sympathy for their motives, particularly after details of Jessica's murder were revisited, the jury found all 3 guilty of multiple counts of first-degree murder. The judge, acknowledging the complexity of the case, nevertheless sentenced them to life imprisonment without possibility of parole. At the sentencing hearing, Jamila's final statement resonated through the courtroom. "The system gave them a second chance to build new criminal empires. I gave them what they deserved. My only regret is that my daughter isn't here to see justice done."